All right, here's your first practice problem. As you look through this, the first step is to create your x. All right? When you do that and you create this, remember, we call this is A, this is B, this is C. A always has the x squared with it, B always has the x or whatever the variable is, and C always just has itself with nothing else with it. All right? Do you remember when we did stuff like this? Like 2x plus 4. All right, what was this called? Oh, that was called the y-intercept, right? And if we were to graph this, remember we go 1, 2, 3, 4. We would graph it right there, right? Positive 4. I'd use a different color. You put a point there. And then what would you do? Then you would go up 2 over 1, right? You need to remember this. And then that would be your line. That's a linear equation. Now we're graphing. We're not graphing yet, but these problems we're doing, I told you yesterday, they are called parabolas. And they're going to look like this. Remember? Either like this or like this. Okay? And this number has some significance. It's also, once again, the y-intercept with one of these guys. So if this is your graph, and let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, this is where it kind of would, see what I'm saying? It would cross at 4 on your graph. It would be a prettier graph than that. But that number tells you where it's going to cross. We're not doing that yet, but it's always something good to kind of give you a little pre-knowledge before we actually get into it. All right, so A, B, and C. Why did I show you that? This is supposed to be A times C. This is supposed to be B. A times C goes on the top. So A times C is 12. 3 times 4. B is going to be 8 on the bottom. When you do your math, what times what equals, she's still short?
Yeah, by 1.
No way.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I have any more 1. Oh, hey, right here. There we go. Okay. All right, now, I hope, Troy, just take all these. Let's just make sure I gave her the right ones. Okay. I think I did. All right, now, 6 and 2. Does that work? So 6 and 2. And when you actually write out your factors, 3x, that's what your binomial is going to look like. It has to start with 3x. Has to start with whatever's here. Not the squared, but whatever's there has to start with it, okay? And then over here, it's going to be 3x plus 2, okay? Now, the last final step you have to do with just this first part is look at both these. Can these be written smaller? Is there a greatest common factor out of that? Can you simplify either one of those? 3, does 3 go into 2? Of course not. But 3 goes into 6, so I can take 3 out of this. So if I take 3 out, I divide it out, what's left? X and 2. So you're basically dividing it out, okay? So this method is called the trash can method. If you were to GCF at this point, that's going in your trash can, all right? It has a really big lid. Now, the trash can goes away. That's your answer. So this is your answer, and this is your answer. But what's different about this problem? This problem would be fine if this wasn't here, it'd be done. But it is there, isn't it? So the fact that it is here means we have to deal with it, which means you have to set this. These are your two answers, right? Because you broke this down. You have to set those to 0 and solve for them, okay? Set them to 0. This one's super easy. And I was working with Jonathan yesterday and tutoring, and he was like, so Jonathan does a lot of stuff ahead of time that I didn't realize. He just did the work already, and he knew it was going to be -2, right? It doesn't take much to figure out that this is going to be -2, right? It's just going to be the opposite. So x equals -2, okay? What about y? So if I look at this, I'm going to put it up here. What did I say y about? That's funny. We're not dealing with y. I'm messing with you. All right, I've been thinking too much about my other class. 3x equals -2. Divide 3. So what is it? -2/3? So those are my two answers. All right, and then yesterday, I even went further and showed you what it would look like if we graphed it. Right, so I'm gonna show it on the screen again. So hopefully you wrote all that down. And we're not gonna graph yet, but probably the next couple weeks we'll start graphing these. And it's not that hard to graph them, but there are some steps involved. Let me see, 3x plus 2 plus 8x. All right. Here's something else. When I say equals 0, sometimes they'll say equals y right here. Y equals, and then here it is. All right. What were my answers again? -2, and then what? -2/3. Are those my snake bites? We talked about this yesterday. So when you solve this, the 2/3, -2/3, and -2, that is where they touch -2, -2/3. That's where they touch the x-axis. What your answers were: x equals -2, x equals -2/3. Right? Now, does this make a difference too? Is that interesting? +4. Didn't I tell you? What did I say? That's where that's the y-intercept. That's where it crosses the y-intercept. Okay. And then eventually we'll talk about what this guy is too, but not yet. All right. Interesting. Hopefully. You're like, not really. No, it should be. Now, let's see. This problem, would that give you any problems? I doubt it. We just did one just like that, okay? This problem, same thing. No big deal. No big deal. No big deal. No big deal. The first 5, no big deal. Number 6. All right, big deal? Take a look at that. All right. What's it from Madagascar? You've got to move it. You have to move this. It has to move. It has to move. You cannot leave it this way. We're going to do a practice one right now. All right. So here's your problem. Let me give you a good one. Let me see. Write this down. Let's see if I did. All right. There's one way to solve this one. Okay. And actually, this isn't just like this one. Let me change this up a little bit. Sorry, guys. All right. So this is just like the problem you'll have on number 6. Is that correct? I believe that was number 6. Let me just take one more quick second. Number 6, right? Okay, cool. And we'll see how many I do give you on these for your homework. So number 6 is just like this. And your first step is you have to put it in the proper form. So it must look like this. Equals 0. There cannot be anything over here. You got to get that out of here. You got to move it over. If I move it over, I can just put it over here somewhere. And I could put it at the end of this whole equation, but is there a like term I can add it with? And there is. I can do it that way. So write that down that way. I'm allowed to move it over. This cancels out. And there's my problem now. Why don't you go ahead and try to solve that now? What was that? Was that in here or the other class? Oh, it was your water bottle. You're scaring the viewers of my video. All right, now. All right, this is what you're doing now. Get through it. If you go through this slowly, go ahead and solve it. If you got to this point, oh no, you keep working. I'm talking to my video now. You can GCF both of these if you want to, or you can leave it alone. It's up to you. If I was to GCF these, I would take 2 out of both of them. You guys still working? All right. So then, what did I mess up on? That's right. So this becomes, you set them to 0. You can do this in your head pretty quick, but if you want to write it all out, that's fine. -4, -1. Yeah. We're good? All right, that's the end of this video.